Good morning. It's Wednesday, October 18th, 7 a.m. here in the WCA Secondary School Media Center. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving into roll call, Mr. Christensen is not with us this morning. Nessman is here. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Savalik is not with us. Sandstead?
Here.
Strump?
Here.
And Ulrich?
Here.
Okay. I don't believe we have any visitors that want to address the public this morning, so we'll move into modifying our agenda. We do have one modification under the consent agenda. We're going to remove B1. Mr. Brownell, any other additions or revisions besides that?
That's it.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. We'll move on to our reports for the day, and I believe it's just the superintendent's report.
Okay, so a lot of things going on. The election, of course, we had the community meetings last week. Did not have great attendance at those meetings, so trying to find other additional ways to get information out to folks. That still seems to be the biggest concern, is people are just unaware of the election. My understanding is, I know we've had a few folks come in now for early voting after a postcard was evidently sent out, so those folks have come in. We have our district mailing. Hopefully they'll be delivered today. Our notice, keeping in mind that that's the legal requirement that we have to do, so the attorney kind of shows us what needs to be laid out there, so there's not a whole lot of colorful pictures and things like that, but exactly laid out what they need. It'll be a 11 by 17 folded over twice. That'll be put into each taxpayer's mail there, and those hopefully will be going out Thursday morning. And the deadline for that is next Monday, so we plan to get those out Thursday morning, unless we get them earlier today. But the printer was having a little bit of a problem with their tabbing machine, so they couldn't get that to come out like they wanted to, so hopefully today on that. Notice of special election, I already touched on that. I do have 3 video clips, recorded those yesterday to put on Facebook. That was one of the suggestions to get information out there. And so there's 3, when I say video clips, I should say video clips for Facebook, so between 1 to 2 minutes long, closer to the 2-minute side, you know me, on how things work. So we've got that. So the first one's gonna be question number 1, illustrating the importance of why we need the operating levy. That's going to just take care of current funding that we receive with the inflationary index, because we've fallen behind there. Question 2 on the capital project levy for technology, why we're looking for that one. And then number 3 was where the voting was going to take place. Again, that it's in person or early voting that way. So we've got those 3, and then I'll plan to do 3 more next week to get those pushed out so folks can get that information that way. Negotiations, had our first negotiations meeting last Wednesday. It went very well. We did spend about 90 minutes. The language pieces on their end are going to be very simple to fix. Some of it's grammatical and things like that. So I don't think language is going to take a real length of time. The biggest thing is going to be all the legislative changes that need to be implemented there. Will be our biggest piece to kind of work through that. Payroll, Chrissy has taken over that role. We have Jesse and Jordan from Freshwater coming today. I want to commend our staff or thank them for their patience. It's been a real roller coaster here since the start of the year. We're still trying to get some pieces taken care of with deductions, how some of those things are showing up on paychecks. So even though their pay is right, the hourly rate is showing up wrong, but if you take their pay divided by the hours, it does come up. The big one is always that premium pay for our child care workers there. So we've got that taken care of, but hopefully that'll get cleaned up here in the next month after Chrissy's at the helm, getting all those pieces ready to go with all those new deductions and things like that. District Office Administrative Assistant, Megan and I will be reviewing to see how we want to fill that position. What you have in front of you today, the board packet, is from all the pieces that I put together this time, and I've been used to doing that in prior districts, but quite honestly, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to come to WCA, because there was more support, and so we'll see how that works. But I also like to do things that way myself too, so we'll work through that. And I know Megan has some similar feelings there, so we'll work through that. And then just wanted to report back in the superintendent's conference, just so you know that I do go and actually pay attention while I'm there. So there was a couple, the opening keynote was a superintendent from Maine and presented on some pieces about building a culture of trust within a district. So we'll take some of those pieces to incorporate into my own practice. And then the READ Act, it was the Chisago Lakes School District that was there presenting, and just said, one, it's very costly. They were looking at letters and time-consuming and not always well-received. So they said they have put a real strong focus on that. Of course, that's the new legislation that we need to implement, so there'll be a lot of work there, but they said it was. So what they used was all of their federal ESSER funds to cover all the pieces. We have a little bit of that left with summer learning loss. I think we'll be able to use that, but they said they still didn't have enough money to cover, so it's a little concerning that way because of the time commitment that'll be there, and then just the money for the materials and things like that. But I know Lakes Country and Midwest Special Ed Cooperative are working through that. And then they also had a negotiation session that MSBA put on a little bit, just kind of giving an update where everybody was at currently with negotiations, and it sounds like it's all over the board with many of the different groups. So still working through that. And they actually pointed out on this historic funding, they said we continue to hear about historic funding. They said the unfortunate part is it really didn't relate to that for school districts because many of those things already came with areas identified where it needed to go to, so it's not quite as historic as people think. And the other piece that she pointed out was the fact that really funding from the state is oftentimes only 60% of our budget, so it's not 4% on the entire part, it's probably 4% on 60% of the budget. So those are the pieces that I gleaned from that. MEA break tomorrow, Friday. November early release is November 1st. That's also our work session for the school board, so the first Wednesday. So that'll be right around the corner here. Then our special election is Tuesday, November 7th.
Work session, did I miss this?
I think that's what we always call our first one, right?
Our committee meeting.
Our committee, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I was like,
committee meeting, yep,
it's okay,
so-
yeah.
Yep.
We have a
Little different language.
Yeah,
Sorry.
committee meeting,
That's all
so, yep. And so that's all I have for the superintendent report.
In looking at the administrative assistant position, the understanding answering phones and some clerical support can take some time. Big picture wise, Mr. Brownlow, what do you envision the support looking like? Because obviously every superintendent operates just a little bit differently. So as you indicated, there's some things that you like to do as opposed to maybe some things that prior superintendents relied on that position to do.
Yep.
Do you have big picture idea for the board as far as where that position, higher level responsibilities beyond kind of a secretary role, what that would look like?
Right, that I don't, that's what I want to check with Megan on, because I think Maggie's done a nice job of assuming some of those pieces as well, so we might be able to absorb all of that, potentially. All the different roles. The biggest thing would be is if somebody calls a district office, who are we going to put first to take care of that? And I guess to be real transparent in that piece is, we know our budget setting, and sometimes you have to show that you're willing to be one of the first ones to look at some of those pieces closest to you, and I think that would be one of our opportunities. But I also don't want to miss out on the service that we require as well. And so the public data requests would be the other piece that we'd have to look at to see. Those have started to slow down, but that can be time consuming as well. And that could be there could be some additional clerical support there on those pieces.
Is there comments or questions
I'm just
related to
processing.
superintendent's report?
Well, one question that came to me, is it possible to send out like one of our instant alert messages like we send out for a snow day about the election?
Yep.
Or that, hey, here's where the information is at, you know, so people, you know, I've still heard from a lot of people that I would say are fairly tied in, you know, fairly into the school, they have kids, they're, you know, they're,
Sure.
but they're just like, oh, I didn't know what's happening, I didn't know. So I'm just wondering if, could we send out a blast that just says, hey, you know, this is coming up on the 7th, here's where the information is, you know, check the
Check the website, check the Facebook page.
check the newspaper, you know, whatever that
Yep.
is, just so, you know, at least our, you know, district families are aware. You know.
No, absolutely. So
Yeah, it
maybe-
could be, we could say something like, you know, make sure to follow the West Central Area Facebook page, because we'll be posting
And our website has
information
some
there.
great revisions there, so if you haven't seen the website, so maybe we'll put that out today to tell everybody that we have the MEA, and then please look at this, and we can also tell them that the notice of election will be coming to them, but then to look on the website, because there's a new frequently asked questions page on there and things like that, that's very good, that looks very, very nice.
I think my silence in your response was that I was wrapping my mind around that position.
Oh, back up.
Yeah, but it's related to what Maya was just talking about, you know, between staff survey and surveys that we've done with the community. looking at the whether it's bond communications or levy communications, taking that data request piece into it, and knowing that with the READ Act, there's likely a significant increase in the amount of instructional coaching time that Kari could and maybe should dedicate to our district as opposed to that halftime PR piece. I wonder if we shouldn't consider a communications person in that position. I understand you were trying to look for savings, but I also want us to, when we have openings with positions like this, where we have an opportunity to say, what's worked, how are we operating now, and what's our ideal state for operation. I think communications is a piece that keeps resurfacing, where the feedback is always consistently, hey, we'd like to see more communication, whether it's our staff, it's our families, or what have you. So whether it's, and there are some ways it doesn't have to be a warm body in a seat here, but there could be some savings realized just by working with someone that's hired, that's experienced in school communications on a contract basis, and still realize some savings. But I hesitate to just look at it as an opportunity to eliminate entirely the position if we have opportunity to improve, particularly on the communication piece. It's just a thought that was circulating through my mind.
Makes sense, yeah, because right now the high school, or the phone, 7,300 has been transferred to the high school, so those secretaries are now answering, which Chrissy said from a long time ago, which probably should have been happening, because like when the attendance call goes out, then she gets all the calls back when they, if they're not in school, she gets all those calls and has to forward them over. But I do like the communications piece, because that's something that can always be better.
Because with the READ Act, having to have a dedicated, and of course I haven't looked at this in a couple months, so I forget the language specifically, but having someone that's dedicated to overlooking the adoption of science of reading aligned curriculum and instruction. I assume the co-op technically has their name on that, but internally, who's going to be the person that, if someone was taught strategies that don't align with science of reading, teachers can go to say, I've got this child who's having this decoding issue, or I've got this child who's got a fluency issue. Here's how I typically would have taught that. Is what I'm doing aligned with science of reading? I just think there's going to be a lot higher demand as we're pushed that direction on Kari's instructional coaching piece, and a lot less time for PR. And I don't know that it benefits us to continue to keep instructional coaching PR halftime versus looking at how does communications play into this opening that we have, and what's realistic of Kari's time moving forward, given how many legislative changes there are coming specific to instructional coaching.
Well, that was the biggest thing that district that presented, was their fidelity of the implementation of the program. So making sure that everybody, they said that's where the frustration comes from. Some folks who have been teaching for years is, you're now telling me I've got to do this differently, that this isn't meeting the mark of what needs to happen. And that was a huge transition piece, and they said it continues to be a struggle for them, and so, which takes time as well. Typically you would ask your principals to do that, but if they're dealing with other emergencies, it's hard to say, I'm gonna dedicate this, because if you have an emergency and they say, hey, right now I'm working READ Act for the next 2 hours, so I won't be able to get, some people may be a little upset to say, are they taking care of discipline, or are they worried about this?
Right.
Well, they've got to take care of both.
Well, since we already have that position, maybe that makes sense, we are already, just to, maybe it makes sense, I don't know.
And it just might be helpful for Kari to speak to what instructional coaching looks like. Whether that's providing you an update and sharing that at the board. Sometimes I take for granted my knowledge because I'm working in the industry of curriculum versus what others who might be watching the meeting or aren't as plugged into the READ Act and the legislative changes that are coming looks like. So I think it's just a good opportunity for us to talk about how instructional coaching works in our district and what Kari's doing to support our teachers, so that we can really evaluate, is it a halftime position, or are we really looking at more?
I think it's a valuable point, yeah. I think that's one of the things that our staff have been, when we heard a little bit about that in our meet and confer piece about having opportunity to go out and get some professional development and things like that. That was kind of shut off for a while due to the budgets, and I don't think ever kind of got reinstituted. And so now we'd like to get that out where folks can get out and have some of that professional, engagement management and practice and things like that outside of the walls here, so they can continue to improve.
Your comment was, after you get shot down a few times in a row, you just quit asking. There's a lot of teachers now that are in that mindset that doesn't even pay for me to ask because I'm not gonna get it, which I don't think is where we're at, but it's where they're at, you know, that's their mindset is, doesn't pay for me to ask because they're gonna say no.
Right, yeah, if I already know my answer, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely.
So,
All right, good discussion. I'm gonna get back to our agenda here. Let's move on to payment of claims. Mr. Sabalik wasn't able to be with us this morning, but Mr. Brownlow, I believe you have a couple of items you were gonna touch on.
Yeah, just wanted to bring it to your attention, if you see a large one there for Ace Hardware, that one is actually for the filters in all of our buildings, I think it was a little over $7,000, so I wanted to bring that one to your attention to just let you know that that is a legitimate expense, and that is for, yeah, it's on page 2 there, $7,319.43, check number 152032, and that's just for all the filters in all the different buildings, so it's a one-time purchase at the beginning of the year, that takes care of that. A lot of these, when you see personal names on there for anywhere from $100 to $150, that's gonna be for all of our officials, for either volleyball or football for the fall seasons. There's also a large bill on there from Vinco. If you see that one was to the tune of, I believe, $42,000. That's check number 152028 for $42,155.26. That is a lot of the work that happened this summer. So it would have been the winches up at the north gym. Remember the hoops weren't going up, and then it's also the lights in the gym here, the lights in Mr. Kreft's shop, and then some other miscellaneous repairs that were there. GNR Controls also has a bill in there, and we found out that the bill was emailed in June and finally got kind of cleared up, or they asked why they weren't getting paid, and we said, well, we didn't have access to that email, so that's some cleanup from last, even March on some of those bills. So that's kind of a story of the bills there. Is there any questions on those?
Amount to approve is $256,447.34.
Can I ask one question? We still haven't had payroll for how many months? Are we gonna start getting that back into our numbers?
Yes, that is, I did ask Maggie about that, and there's still some glitch in the system trying to get those all pulled through. I think a little bit with payroll, not having anybody there too to get those pulled
Right.
through, but they're working on that, so we'll do a cleanup all the way through to
Right.
see all those.
It's
'Cause
just very confusing when we look at these numbers to
very
not
misleading,
have.
right? Yeah,
Right,
saying
if
we should
someone were to
have-
hear 200,000 for the month, it's like, that's definitely not what we paid. Does not
Exactly.
translate to our budget, so
Yep.
I just wanted to mention, it seems like we haven't had it for a while, so I just wanted to ask.
When this comes to the agenda to that point, can we make sure that it explicitly states improvement, payment of claims, the amount, and includes payroll for the months of,
Yes,
in the amount of, that way it, on the meeting minutes, registers for anyone that would be paying attention to our
Right.
meeting minutes, that's,
and they'll be broken 3
Where
months
the
if it's
big-
been like that.
Well, right, so that's what I'm saying, so we have a couple 200s on here, and then we have like,
Right.
oh, here's all the payroll for the last several months.
And that'll probably be the breakdown in the future too, to have the checks, so the check numbers will probably be, that's my typical practice.
Yep,
is
and
the
that's
check
fine,
numbers.
as long as, like I said, it's just very misleading to hear
Right, yeah.
200,000 for the month.
Yeah, with controlled costs. There's a lot more in payroll, so, yeah, so then we would have all the ACHs on a separate one, so everybody knows what those two different pieces are.
very good. So do I have a motion to approve payment of claims in the amount of $256,447.34? Okay, motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. I believe we have, is that the, no, that is the final reading. So 7 items on the consent agenda for board consideration. Those items are approved meeting minutes from September 20th, regular board meeting, October 4th, work meeting, and October 12th, special meeting. Approve the following personnel items: a leave request for Hannah Vasquez, premium pay request for Chrissy Oakes for district election coordinator for November 7th, 2023. And approving the final reading of the following policies: policy number 624, online instruction; policy number 713, student activity accounting; policy number 721, uniform grant guidance policy regarding federal revenue resources; and policy number 802, disposition of obsolete equipment and material. Comments or questions about the consent agenda?
I was just gonna point out, if you guys are wondering about that, if anyone was wondering about the pay for Chrissy, she wasn't getting paid the same amounts as the election judges, so we figured she should get it paid at least at least what the election judges were when she was doing that, so.
Yeah, so she'll be paid the head election judge just for that day, and
Yeah.
all the other work she's doing at
Right.
a regular rate, but just
Right.
that day. And there was quite a disparity there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Move to approve. Second.
We'll say Ulrich made the motion to
There we
approve
go.
and Strunk did the second, just to mix it up a little
That's
bit
right.
here.
A lot of-
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to old business, award snow removal quotes for the 23-24 school year. Mr. Brownlow, do you want to provide the board an update and a recommendation?
Absolutely. So we did have 3 folks that were considering quoting for the project. We did receive responses from 2. Grove Green did our snow removal last year, and then J&J, that's Jared Johnson, and he was willing to quote just doing snow removal down at the South Elementary School building there. But as you'll see by the comparison chart, the difference is $5 per hour between J&J Custom Services for the plow trucks with the V-plows, or just the plow trucks there, so it's $80 per hour, and Grove Green is at $75 an hour, and they maintain their rates pretty consistent all the way through. And Grove Green is willing to do all 3 facilities, so the recommendation there would be to move forward with Grove Green on all 3, and like I said, we'll still monitor the snowfall in the parking lots just to see. Been made very clear that when the wind blows, it can create a mess, and we don't want it to be a slippery parking lot, so we'll monitor that as we move forward. But again, recommendation for Grove Green based on the information on the quotes that were submitted.
Comments or questions from the board?
And was this based on 2 inches or more, or did that get?
Yes. Nope, that's still in there. Like I said, I did tell them, kind of like I think was mentioned by the board, that sometimes the snow here, depending on how it ends up in the parking lot, may require a little bit different. I said I'd like to monitor it at the very beginning to see, that way. So that was mentioned, and I did kind of ask, a little bit how much time it would take as well, just to see, so we're comparing apples to apples, and both seem to be same regardless of who it was, removing the snow. But yeah, I think we'll watch that, we'll listen for concerns, complaints, and we don't want all kinds of slips and falls out there, because that takes care of the cost of snow removal. But I think if we can do some of that on our own, we've got a tool cat, maybe we have to buy our own blade on that to take care of the front, and have to hire somebody just when it's so small or snow falls to quickly get that removed. We now have a trailer that could also be moved between the buildings that are there as well, so I'll work with Chad on that to make sure that we're looking out for the bottom line of the district as well.
Can you remind me how sidewalks work? I seem to think that the south sidewalk became our responsibility, or was our responsibility. There was maybe some confusion at some point whose responsibility it was.
So
And is that included in the support
it is, yep.
that
So-
Grove Green is providing?
Yep, they're supposed to remove sidewalks, the entryways on all the, shoveling and stuff like that, and then the parking lot.
Perfect.
I think the issue there was a little bit, sometimes that maybe the roads were already cleared, and then later they came just making sure that they get all that snow, they can't push it back into the road if it's already been removed.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Under new business, we have approving the resolution accepting donations. We have 1 donation for the board to consider today. It's from the Community Healthcare Auxiliary in the amount of $2,300 for North Elementary pedometers. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So,
Who's getting the pedometers?
I
Tractors from the garden steps or something?
Yeah, I will follow up and see.
Community Healthcare Auxiliary, I'm going to make an assumption that maybe it's the staff, but I'm not for certain.
Or maybe maybe it's FIAD too.
A FIAD-related activity, yeah. Could be.
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Roll call vote, starting with, I made my cheat sheet, it's too early in the morning. Nessman is a yes. Olson?
yes.
Sandsted?
Yes.
Strunk?
Yes.
And Ulrich. Okay, moving on to B, under new business, approve assurance of compliance report. That was provided for you in the board packet. I'm going to flip to it so I can summarize it. Assurance of compliance compliance report has Anna Roloff as the Human Rights Coordinator, Title IX Coordinator is Jacob Foslin, and 504 Coordinator is Nate Wood. Any comments or questions from the board? There was one update, it looks like, to the harassment and violence policy. That was uploaded, oh, not necessarily updated, sorry, just uploaded as part of the assurance and compliance report.
Yes, yep, so it is an updated policy. It was updated in 2022. That one does include the name, a specific name for the Human Rights Officer Coordinator.
Comments or questions from the board? Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to 7C, adopt resolution of governing board supporting Form A application of Minnesota State High School League Foundation. That was also supplied for you in the board. And as a summary, therefore be it resolved that the governing board of West Central Area School District number 2342 supports the school's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for a Form A grant to offset student activity fees. Comments or questions from the board? Motion to approve, and a second.
Second.
Roll call vote, Nessman is a yes, Olson,
Yes.
Sandsted,
Yes.
Strunk,
Yeah.
and Ulrich.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to discussion items for today, it looks like just the one item, which is a discussion about the levy.
Can I ask a question? There was minutes in here that we were supposed to approve today, but that's not on the agenda.
Oh, it's back in,
Did we approve minutes?
Yeah. back under consent agenda.
So we did it, okay, sorry. And then, on the donations, who made the motions? I didn't write that down.
I motion.
Motion, who second on?
Jared and Maya.
Jared and Maya, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
Jared or Maya, or Jared
Obviously,
Olson.
I'm checked out this morning, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Paul does a good job at taking down notes. Where would you like to start the levy discussion, Mr. Brownell?
Well, we've kind of already had quite a bit of that, but so we'll make sure that we get that instant alert out to our families and probably just maybe do a weekly reminder. We don't want to overdo it, but just remind them of that when the election is, probably the voting process. That way there, like I said, I've got the videos coming out, the video clips. We'll also get the other video from last Thursday's community meeting. We didn't have any attendees, but it did, Sarah and myself presented, Maya was there, and I think that did leave a clear picture. I think it's gonna be a lot easier to see the actual screen, because we did it here, and then you could just see the PowerPoint up there at that point. So, and I did get the new comparison, $300,000 comparison, so I'll get that out to all of our board members as well. I think that was one of the things that was interesting from getting some community feedback for those who did attend the meeting to say, hey, these are the pieces that we do need to know, and maybe a little bit different thought than some of the things we were thinking. I mean, there was really some push there a little bit to say, we need to clearly understand if this doesn't pass, what is going to be the next step? And they said, it doesn't need to be we're falling apart type of a message, but please let people know that this isn't really, to not pass this isn't really going to be an option to move forward with. And so we need to know what those other pieces that are going to be there. But I think if we get that out, the notice will go out to families in that mailing. So I think that'll garner more interest in the vote, and just again reminding people. That'll be the one piece that we'll get on our website as well. And then it is in that district mailer, the actual resolution that the board passed last December, identifying polling design or designated polling places. So that should probably be on the website as well. The sample ballots will be on there. I think we already have those on there, so people recognize that. That way there, it is still, we can only read the question. We had somebody come in earlier this week, and their question was, will this raise my taxes? Well, we only read the question on the very bottom. It does say, by voting yes, you're asking, you are allowing a tax increase. Really, that capital, or the operating levy is a renewal. However, it does increase it based on inflation in 2026. But so that's what we can do when folks come in to vote and things like that. But yeah, like I said, our numbers have increased by a few, not a whole lot of early voting that way, but hopefully now with this notice going out over the weekend, that folks will be more aware of the election coming up and things like that, and getting Facebook posts out. There was a suggestion from one of the committee, or one of the people that came to the community meeting, said please get things out on Facebook, on the website, we'll do the calls. I'll probably reach out and follow up with Jake here with today's meeting. Since it isn't live right now, we're recording, I'll follow up with him and see if there's an additional story that we get on the front page to remind people there again, maybe just focusing on the voting aspect of it. That people realize that they're not able to mail in vote. It is either in person or coming here, getting that absentee ballot.
So there are, I think, several items that we're going to add to the website page. There's a dedicated levy page. If the board could take a look at that and let Paul or I know if there are additional questions you think that should be included specifically under the FAQ section, that would be very helpful.
Ellers had that estimator, can we link to that on our?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep, good reminder, yes. Yep, that needs to be, they've got that updated, so thanks for reminding of that.
And then you mentioned the community videos, get that posted.
Yeah, so
So
I
are those
have,
gonna go on Facebook and on our website?
yes, they can.
I just feel like that's probably the best.
Better way to get that
Yeah.
out, okay?
So and I believe the ballot questions, if they're on the site, I haven't pulled those into the levy specific page yet, so,
I
The
think
actual
they're on the
language, you mean?
election. Yeah, I think they're there, because we had to do them a different color, so they should be on the election tab.
okay, let's look at that
Yep.
after the meeting maybe and
Perfect,
make
yep.
sure that you can go to one place to get all the information.
Would be a good idea.
So, the resolution about polling places, the short videos we can add to the site, pulling in the ballot questions and specific to the levy page, the slide deck will add any additional FAQs that the board has. I wanna double check and make sure it says that you can, email questions to questions@ISD, if people would prefer to do that, and then the estimator from Ellers. But if the board, as homework today coming out of the meeting, just wants to take a quick look at the website and see if there's anything beyond what's there in this list that you think should be on the website, that would be very helpful. Any other discussion related to the levy?
Nope, I think that's all I had, just making sure that people are informed of what's happening there, and I'll get to that page too, the $300,000 comparison, because I think that was the big piece too, that people mentioned to say, please show that the board's done a nice job of reviewing that to say, here's why you made the decision to look at the capital project levy. One was increased cost and technology, but also that spreads that tax burden over a broader tax base, and I think that sheet illustrates that very well, so.
Yeah, we do, I have that built into an FAQ, but I think there's a better way to present that information, on the website, so I'd be curious what your thoughts are.
Sure. No,
We
I
can
can-
maybe put that.
Yeah, it was very nice. I saw it last night, and I think it'll be helpful to our folks there to see. The other thing too, I think we'll put on there is the Secretary of State's website. If you go on to Poll Finder there, when you type that in, I had to do that to see if, the bill that we received was for one of our students, if they were indeed one of our students. And if you go into that, it actually does say next upcoming election, Tuesday, November 7th, special election for West Central Area School District. So there's
So that link is at the bottom of the page for the
Okay.
Secretary of State website, but we don't have the other one, the
Estimator.
Ellers
Yeah,
estimator
Ellers, I'll
on
get
there.
that for sure, and then the video too.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, very good. We're at the end of our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Alright.
Any opposed?
See you.
Motion passes.
Oh, I do.
One?
Oh, huh?
Perfect, thank you very much.